Space Dandy Season 2, Episode 5, The Gallant Space Gentleman, baby. Definitely a pretty good episode. We learned some random bits of information. The episode definitely went in a completely different way than I thought it was going to go. We actually got to see Gogol really, really come close to getting Dandy. Of course, we didn't get any information whatsoever as to why they want him. They didn't actually talk to him or anything, but they did almost actually get Dandy in this episode, and that was interesting. I'm still actually pretty curious as to how they even got Honey in this episode, who, with the little bit of information that we did get in this episode, we find out her real name is Lady Umbra, or something very similar to that. I can't remember what her last name specifically was, but we find out that she's half Cloudian, which is this rare species, and they can control clouds based on their emotions. And that was pretty interesting to find out. And I love how they handled that at the end of the episode. Like, this is a real name, and as she mentioned, she's only half Cloudian, but we're kind of running out the clock, so we'll just, push that to the side for another episode that probably won't ever actually come out, because they tend not to get into any real details on these characters at all. They haven't explained any true detail on any of these characters except really Meow when they went to his home planet, and it was like the Groundhog's Day episode where it repeated every single day. But that's really about it. We learned a lot about his family and how he has all these siblings and stuff. Dandy, we don't know anything about. QT's a robot, so I'm sure he doesn't have that huge of a backstory. Um, like Honey, we found out a little bit in this episode. Scarlett, she was in this one too. We didn't really get much out of her, like I was hoping for, really. But it did start off with her, which was interesting. And like I said, I thought it was gonna kind of go down the route that she would kind of be the action half of this episode, like she was in that, like the first episode where she wasn't just doing her job. I thought it was going to be like that, where she was sort of the action half, and then Honey was going to be the more comedy side of it, because she's just that silly, sort of ditzy character. But we find out in this episode, she's a lot less ditzy than she seems, because she came up with that plan, which, excuse me, was really to get herself saved, and she even knocked out the main guy, or I guess the second um, second hand guy for Goal. So that was pretty interesting. She made her own little escape and stuff. But it was definitely an interesting episode. It went by pretty quick. I definitely enjoyed Dandy trying to go save Scarlett, and then it's like he went and got in there and he couldn't really save her, and then he finds out that Honey's in trouble, and it's like they kind of just ditched Scarlett for whatever reason. It's like, well, too bad, and we gotta go save Honey now, and then she kind of feels like she's been left out. And the whole point of the episode was her initially kind of trying to find love and stuff, and she went to the planet for the basically free female buffet with her friend, who, I don't know why they made her look that way, where she just has like huge breasts and a huge butt, but whatever. And the introduction to this episode started something that I'm really glad it ended, or at least it shortened in the second half of the episode. But the little laugh track thing, I honestly I hated it in this episode. It was kind of annoying. And I think it was because it wasn't even like a normal laugh track where it's like, ah, ha ha, people actually laugh. It was just like, ha ha, and it was like that every time. It was like two little things, which they even explained, which I thought was a funny part in the episode. But it's like just two people laughing, and they each just go like, ha ha. And so it's like four little laughs every time there's a random little joke, and it was really annoying. And initially, when I watched the episode, the very first time I thought it was a laugh track, and then the second time when they actually showed Scarlett's friend that she was talking to and how she was in that long hallway, I thought it was just like the other girls in the background were laughing, like all the girls in the room were just laughing at what they were saying. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that's not a laugh track that's gonna be going through this whole episode. And unfortunately, I was right the first time when I thought it was just a laugh track. But like I said, once they actually kind of, I guess, sort of broke the fourth wall, but not really, with them being a completely different species, just ambiance creatures that were invisible and sort of there, but not really there. So that did definitely tone down after that part in the episode, which I really enjoyed. But it was definitely a good episode. It had its really silly moments, like Dandy going up against the guy, being mad at him for not having weapons. And my favorite scene, without a doubt, was when he was going through the hallway after Scarlet and Meow decided to just get drunk. and they were gonna end up being left on the ship while it blew up. So Dandy had to go get them. And at first, it was just simple. It was like Scarlett was drunk, and I knew it wasn't like she was falling for Dandy. It was like, well, I know she's just drunk, and it's like this is a guy coming in to save her and Meow. But like her looking at him was like the typical little thing, like, oh, she's just drunk, so she's seeing him rescuing her. So no big deal on that. Like I know she's gonna sober up, and then she do a roundhouse kick, and Dandy's out of there. So it was just like, this little moment that she's having. But then they showed Meow making the same little face. I thought that was just the funniest thing ever because I was not expecting that at all. And they had, like, even when they had the laugh track on that little part, it didn't bother me because that scene was so funny to me. Just the face he was making. And the fact that they showed that in general, I was not expecting it at all. So that was definitely my favorite part of the episode. I think my second favorite was probably the end when Honey was giving them a ride. And she's like, do you want a ride? And Dandy basically just animation wise, he just teleported and he was just on her back, and the way he was holding her in his face was really funny. And then of course QT and Meow jumped in and Scarlett couldn't get a ride. And then it was like, just, oh, there's no more space. And then of course she kicked them off. But it was a good episode. I do really, really hope that they continue on expanding on the character of Honey, and that we get some expansion on the other characters. Technically, we did get a little bit on Scarlett, that she's looking for love, and that just her job kind of just brings in crappy people, kind of like Dandy, where it's like, I want money, but that's really it, and I'm also kind of stupid at certain times. But that's all we really got on her. And we got stuff on Honey. Like I said, we find out she can come up with simple plans to help people escape. She it's basically revealed that she has a stepbrother or half brother. And I don't know, it's just really interesting that we got that bit of information, even though they treated it the way you would expect Space Dandy 2, which is, hey, here's this information, but hey, it's the second half of the episode, and we only got like 3 minutes, so next time. But one thing they did that really interested me is when, in the beginning of the episode, and this was another reason this episode kind of went in different directions, because it was almost like it started off with the hunger thing, and then that wasn't a problem because they went to the buffet. But that was really funny too, and I enjoyed that. And when they mentioned the stuff about Dandy's body weight or whatever, Meow mentioned how he was more sluggish or something like that when he was a zombie. Excuse me. So that was a clear reference to when they all turned into zombies. So it kind of seems like they created a timeline, like basically saying that they made a timeline for these episodes where it's not just like, oh, they did this and then everybody died and then the episode's over. Like literally the very first episode of the series, I think that was the one where like the galaxy exploded, or they died on the planet and it just blew up. And then the second episode, it was just something totally different. It had nothing. They didn't ever go back to that. The planet exploded with them on it. They died, I guess. And that was all there was to it. And it just went to episode 2 and so on. And there was never mention to that again. And then I think the zombie episode was the second time pretty much everyone died. And so this episode kind of referenced that. And it just kind of, it's one of those things where when you say certain dialogue, you create a timeline for your series, whether you want to or not. And I feel like they did that on purpose. I feel like it was them sort of hinting at the fact that they will at least try to make certain connections, even though this one was just a silly one, like, hey, he was fatter when he was a zombie or something like that. But it could be their little tiny way of hinting, like, hey, we're going to make actual connections to other episodes, and we won't do stuff like introduce certain characters as, well, I won't say Honey's royalty. They just kind of made it seem that way because like they even called her like lady and stuff like that, and her brothers, of course, like in the top hat and suit and like almost mansion type cloud. So that's kind of the way they made it seem, with him being so rich, that she was also royalty too. But it seemed like they were kind of hinting at the fact that they won't do stuff like that or introduce news like that into the series and then just forget about it forever and just do one episode every week that has zero connection outside of the fact that it's the same characters. But I enjoyed the episode. I do really hope that we get more information on Honey. I want to see more from Scarlett. I want to see her fight, because the show is a comedy show. We don't get a lot of great action scenes. her episode in season one was one of the few really cool action scenes we've had in this series, and I'd like to see her do that because she was incredibly skilled when she was fighting all those Gogol people, and she just took all of them out. She was jumping all over that restaurant, roundhouse kicks, and just destroying everyone in there. And that's what I was really hoping for in this episode, because I thought that was kind of how they were going to make her character when she wasn't working. She just randomly end up in these situations where it's like she's there, and then Dandy and his team end up there, and of course if they're there, then here comes trouble, and she'd end up into getting into a fight, inadvertently helping them out. Or in this episode, I thought that they would just flat out be helping each other, but unfortunately we don't get that. But I still enjoyed the episode. It was really funny. Like I said, favorite scene was without a doubt the face that Meow made when he was being carried by Dandy too. That was really funny. And then them kind of getting the ride with Honey at the end of the episode. But it was a good one to me. I'm excited for next week. Of course, comment below. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And with them having made that really, really tiny, itty-bitty connection to the zombie episode, do you guys think that they actually were hinting that they're going to start connecting these episodes, and that they will sort of develop backstories for the characters and give us a lot more information on who the characters are? Like, the one huge question I think everyone has is, why is Gogol after Dandy? They do it, I think there's only been maybe 3 or 4 episodes out of the entire series where Gogol hasn't been in it trying to capture Dandy, but we still have no idea why. Even in the alternate timeline episode, when Dandy was like a little kid and stuff, it was still Gogol, and they actually caught him in there, but we didn't get any information like this is why they're chasing us. It's just they chase us every day, and that character knew it, and of course our universe Dandy doesn't. But do you guys think that they're actually going to start connecting these episodes and giving us full-fledged details for these characters and answers to the questions that we really want to know? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.